Tune in and turn up the volume. This is Channel Africa.
It is midday in this Africa update, coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa on Channel Africa from an African perspective. I'm Lulu Gaboo, and it is time for the news.
SABC News. The African perspective.
Thank you, Lulu, and greetings to our listeners. Beninese government officials are demanding the immediate extradition of the alleged leader of the failed coup who sought refuge in neighboring Togo. A dispute between the two small West African nations over Colonel Pascal Tigray and his alleged accomplices would risk deepening diplomatic divisions in West Africa, which has struggled to respond to a uniform way to a spate of coups in recent years. Soldiers briefly took control of Benin State Television station on Sunday morning and claimed they had deposed President Patrice Talon, but Benin's armed forces, backed by Nigerian fire powers and French intelligence and logistical support, thwarted the attempt. The soldiers identified Tigray as the coup leader. His whereabouts had previously been unknown. South Africa's Basic Education Minister, Siviwe Gwarube, says her department has opened a criminal case with police against two employees in her department. They have been suspended after being linked to the leak of 7 papers in the 2025 National Senior Certificate Examinations. Gwarube has confirmed that English, mathematics and physical science papers were leaked before the exams were written. Several grade 12 learners are also suspected to be involved. A preliminary investigation reveals that the incident is isolated to 7 schools in Pretoria. Gwarube addressed the media in Parliament.
We have 2 suspected employees from the Department of Basic Education. And these 2 individuals have both been suspended and they have been reported to the South African Police Service. As Lucanio has indicated, it's very important for the integrity of the investigation that we don't zoom into who these individuals are, so that we can make sure that we don't shoot ourselves in the foot, because ultimately what we want to do, we want to lead to a successful prosecution.
A newly released report indicates that South Africa remains committed to democracy, yet faces significant social challenges, as shown in the 2025 South African Reconciliation Barometer by the Institute of Justice and Reconciliation. It also reveals low trust in political parties and public institutions. Author of the report, Kate Lefko-Everett, explains.
We did find high levels of distrust in national leadership, in key public institutions, and also across the 4 largest political parties in the country. However, we did find some interesting variation in attitudes towards some of the key policy and legislative issues that have been on the GNU agenda.
Lastly, Venezuelan opposition leader Maria Corina Machado says many people have risked their lives for her to travel to Oslo, Norway to receive the Nobel Peace Prize. She was speaking after her first public appearance for almost a year. Machado made the covert journey despite a travel ban. The BBC's Lucy Hawkins.
In an international exclusive, she told the BBC people had risked their lives for her to make the trip here, but insisted she would return to Venezuela despite the government labelling her a fugitive. She told us she was grateful for the help of President Trump, but refused to be drawn on whether she'd received any assurances from the US government that Venezuela's President Nicolas Maduro would soon be stepping down. When pressed on the question of potential US land intervention inside Venezuela, something President Trump has refused to rule out, Ms. Machado repeated that she believed Nicolas Maduro had been given and refused many offers to leave peacefully. She did say she was ready to lead the country if the call came.
For any news stories you'd like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us at +27 11 714 4459. Channel Africa News, I'm Onele Tsinzi.
SABC News. The African perspective.
In our sports headline, Mali's Africa Cup of Nations preparations are in tatters, and Russian and Belarusian athletes will take part in the 2026 Winter Olympics as neutrals I'll be back with these and other stories at the bottom of the hour.
This is Africa Update, your pulse to the continent. Stories shaping nations and voices driving change. Stay informed, stay connected, right here on Channel Africa, the African perspective.
It is 12:05 Central African time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa on DSTV's Audio Bouquet channel 802, an OpenView channel 628, and on www.channelafrica.co.za, as well as on the SABC Plus app, available on the Apple and Google Play stores. Now join us in conversation on our social media platforms. That's on X, Instagram, and subscribe on YouTube at Channel Africa 1. On Facebook at Channel Africa, you can also send us your comments and voice notes to +2763 at 406-9126 hashtag Africa Update, and let us know which country you're in. And if you have any stories that you'd like us to highlight or to focus on, send us an email. It is newsroom@channelafrica.co.za, or give us a call on +271 714 4459.
Channel Africa is evolving, and so are you. Stay connected wherever you are with our brand new website and mobile app. Stream your favorite shows, catch up on African news, culture, and conversations, all at your fingertips.
Africa is just a tap away.
Your world, your stories, now on the go.
Stay connected wherever you are.
Visit channelafrica.co.za or download the Channel Africa app today. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo, 12 to 1 p.m. Central African Time.
Today on hashtag Africa Update Ask, South Africa has reaffirmed its stance and amid a diplomatic rift over its exclusion from the upcoming G20 engagements. Now, Poland will occupy South Africa's seat at next week's ministerial Sherpa meeting in Miami. Now, what our question to you today is, what do you make of this decision by the US? Share your thoughts and your views on all our social media platforms. That's on X, Instagram at Channel Africa 1, on Facebook at Channel Africa. You can also send us your comments and voice notes to +2763 at 406-9126 hashtag Africa Update Us.
Keep Africa in your hands. Connect to our website for all your news, sports, and cultural updates. channelafrica.co.za.
It is 12:08 Central African time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. Now, at least 22 people have been killed and 16 others injured after 2 buildings collapsed in Morocco. Local officials in Fez say at least 8 families were housed in the 2 buildings. Local media reports suggest that the buildings had shown signs of deterioration over several years. Tracy Boomgard has more.
Search and rescue operation is ongoing to find people who may still be trapped under the rubble. Footage shows people and diggers sifting through the debris, and in a video published on news site Akoborana, a body can be seen carried away on a stretcher by emergency services. Residents of nearby buildings have been evacuated as a preventative measure. An investigation has been opened into the cause and circumstances of the collapse. In January, the country's housing minister, Adib Ben Ibrahim, said that around 13,700 buildings nationwide were under imminent risk of collapse. In May, in a different neighborhood of Fez, 9 people were killed when a condemned building collapsed, and in February last year, 5 people were killed when a house crumbled following heavy rain and strong winds. Fez in northeastern Morocco is one of the nation's oldest cities, with parts dating back to the 8th century, and is the 3rd most populous city. For Channel Africa, I'm Tracy Baumgard.
Be inspired. Stay informed. Channel Africa, the beauty of life. Now available anytime, anywhere with our new app.
Amnesty International has accused Hamas of committing crimes against humanity during its October 7th, 2023 attack on Israel. In its newly released reports, the rights group documents acts of murder, torture, and both physical and sexual violence against hostages abducted during the assault. Now, the report titled Targeting Civilians, Murder, Hostage Taking, and Other Violations by Palestinian Armed Groups in Israel and Gaza concludes that most civilians killed that day died as a result of deliberate actions by Palestinian armed groups. Now, Amnesty also highlights severe mistreatment of hostages, including cases of repeated sexual violence. And for the first time, the non-governmental organization says that the scale and brutality of the atrocities exceed previously documented war crimes and clearly constitute crimes against humanity. For more on this, Philip Luther, head of research at Amnesty International, joins us on the line. Philip, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon.
Now, your report places primary responsibility on the Izz-ad-Din al-Qassam brigades, that's Hamas' armed wing, on the October 7th attack in Israel. What evidence, whether it's visual, witness testimonies, forensic analysis, did Amnesty International gather and analyze to support these conclusions, and how was it verified?
Thanks very much. Well, the report's based on extensive video, testimonial, and other evidence. So if we're looking at the question of attribution of responsibility for crimes committed both on the 7th of October 2023 and against hostages, because the report looks at that issue then between 2023 and up to, of course, earlier this year, we looked at over 350 open source videos and photographs of scenes from the attacks and of people held in captivity in Gaza. And we verified those videos and photographs wherever possible. We examined we triangulated those videos and photographs, what the content in them, with testimonies that we obtained either directly or indirectly. So we were able to do verification and corroboration. And many of those videos, the insignia on uniforms was visible, and in some cases these were, of course, videos of individuals who were actually taking images of themselves committing abuses. So we felt there was a lot there.
Just how does this report align with or differ from findings by other human rights organizations or investigative bodies regarding the October 7th attacks?
So it complements those in that we aren't the first to have concluded that Hamas and other Palestinian armed groups committed crimes against humanity on the 7th of October 2023. However, I guess what this report does is it takes us up to the present day. So other reports have maybe focused more on the specific day, 7th of October 2023. This report, its research and its analysis looks at not only that day, but the treatment of hostages in captivity in Gaza, people who were taken on the 7th of October, but held for weeks, months, and in some cases over 2 years following that day. And it looks, as you said in the introduction, partly at simply the fact that they were held as hostages, which in itself is unlawful, but also at instances of physical abuse, of sexual violence, including sexual assault, forced nudity, in this case of several women and girls, threats of forced marriage. We found evidence of that. We found evidence that not only Hamas or its military wing, the Al-Qassam brigades, but also Palestinian Islamic Jihad was involved in in that abuse. And so that enabled us to come to an overarching conclusion about then those crimes against humanity in our view.
Now, what action should the international community take now that these accusations have been made public?
So we first of all think, and this is a call that's not only about, of course, those responsible for crimes against humanity on the Palestinian side, but very much focused, and we reiterate this because we've done a lot of work on it, on all of those who are accused of such crimes against humanity, war crimes, genocide on the Israeli side. The investigations by the International Criminal Court should continue. They should take place free from any obstruction. We've seen major obstructions put in their way by countries such as the US. They must have access to Israel and the occupied Palestinian territory. They don't at the moment, and they need to consider not only Israel's genocide and crimes against humanity of apartheid, but also these crimes that we're documenting and publishing about today by our Palestinian armed groups. There should be a roadmap. We've seen this peace plan, which in our view doesn't contribute to sustainable peace. The international community should really have a roadmap for a sustainable peace that includes committing states to supporting the ICC, the International Criminal Court. The arrest warrants that they've issued should be enforced. The UN Commission of Inquiry should be supported. And then states should exercise, wherever that's possible, domestic, universal, other forms of extraterritorial criminal jurisdiction for these crimes. They can, where possible, these crimes can be can be prosecuted outside of Israel and the occupied Palestinian territory.
And what role can the International Criminal Court play in ensuring accountability for the alleged crimes committed by Hamas?
So, first of all, they have issued, they had issued arrest warrants against individuals in the Hamas leadership. Those individuals have since been killed, assassinated by Israel. But the investigations are continuing, should continue, need to continue without any form of obstruction. And so they should be looking at the evidence that there is that individuals at a senior level within Hamas and its military wing, the Qassam brigades, the military wings of other armed groups such as Palestinian Islamic Jihad, that they ordered or led attacks that involved murder, involved torture, involved unlawful detention when we're talking about hostages, and if there is evidence of individuals who are still alive, particularly at a senior level, of being responsible, in their view, they should obviously issue arrest warrants in the way that they have done for other senior leaders on the Palestinian and Israeli side. This would be absolutely vital for justice for the victims and the families of victims of these terrible crimes.
And what sort of reaction are you seeing with regards to your report? What are you hearing on the ground in terms of just the reactions and responses?
So this is, of course, a very, very polarized situation. So there are some who are obviously sort of welcoming this documentation that Amnesty has done. Others don't think we've gone far enough. Perhaps they think that we should be using other labels for the for what the Palestinian armed groups have done, or others then perhaps have a view that the Palestinian armed groups are entitled then to take any action that they need to take to resist what is, of course, unlawful occupation, what is a system of apartheid. And so our response to that is, we've documented meticulously, according to our normal standards, the crimes that we believe Palestinian armed groups have conducted. We do that in a context where we've been documenting and condemning over the last 2 years the crimes that Israel have committed, including genocide, which we are stating we believe to be ongoing. So we put this into context. We also are, clear in our minds that the crimes are very serious, and that even when resisting a brutal, unlawful occupation, there are limits, and the limits are set by international law for all actors, including armed groups.
Well, I guess it is an interesting time, and hopefully something good will come out from your research and your report. And just for interest's sake, how long did it take for this report to be put together? And, the number of team members that make up your team with regards to this particular report?
So, we've been researching these concerns, these issues, these crimes since the end of 2023. Amnesty has published other documents, other outputs on crimes by Palestinian armed groups during that time, particularly where we felt we were able to have some sort of impact on ongoing violations, such as the situation of hostages. But we have therefore taken time to look at a far broader picture of evidence. 70 interviews, over 350 photographs and videos that we've looked at. So that's and then, as always with Amnesty reports, there's a rigorous process of review and approval, which has taken then several months. So overall, the work has taken around 2 years. In terms of then team members, we have we've had both staff members and consultants involved in order to help us identify suitable people to interview. So in addition, for any Amnesty report, there's always a number of specialists that are involved. So people who are specialists in international human rights law and our policies. Yeah. And we also make use of independent experts. In this case, we were consulting with independent forensic pathologists who were helping us to look at video material and photographs that showed bodies, for instance, who were killed on the 7th of October, and we were trying to answer the question whether those bodies displayed signs of sexual violence or other abuse.
Yeah. Well, Philip, thank you so much for joining us on Africa Update. We are going to leave it there for today.
Thank you very much indeed.
That's Philip Luther, Head of Research at Amnesty International, joining us on the line.
Ahoy, matey!
Captain here to help, right, boys?
Set sail with us on a digital voyage like no other. Channel Africa has a treasure trove of awesomeness. That is our website and social media pages.
Tell me, why are you here?
We want you to be part of our adventure.
The winds are changing, Captain. And this time...
Imagine a world where curiosity knows no bounds, where entertainment meets enlightenment, and where every click leads to the African perspective. Visit us on our website, www.channelafrica.co.za, or follow us on Instagram or on X at Channel Africa One. Go on, like us on Facebook at Channel Africa One. So, spread the word. Tell a friend that Channel Africa's online variety is what they need on the web. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Africa Update, your daily dose of African insights with Lulu Gaboo on Channel Africa.
South Africa's Department of Basic Education addressed the media regarding a breach involving several grade 12 papers. Our Minister Siviwe Gwagube says no stone is being left unturned to ensure all those responsible for the distribution of state material is held accountable. Now, Gwahube says a case has been opened with the South African Police Service. A national investigative task team will commence work within the next 24 hours to confirm the exact source of the breach, including recommendations to prevent future breaches. Let's take, this is a big story that is unfolding, and we are going to get further updates as the day progresses, especially with the case that has been opened with the South African Police Service. You're listening to Africa Update.
Get Channel Africa on DSTV Audio Bouquet. Channel 802.
All right, Mary Metcalf is on the line, and Mary Metcalf is somebody who has a lot of experience in the education system, especially in South Africa. And Mary, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
Thank you very much, Lulu.
You know, Mary, just reading this and seeing the report, the breaking news yesterday, and the briefing this morning. Why are we still experiencing such breaches? Or is it just something totally different in different years? It's quite interesting how this has unfolded.
It's a very good question, Lulu. So I would say why we see these kinds of problems is because the exam is such high status in the lives of learners. But I think we need to get this particular incident in perspective. There were 3 papers that were compromised, and so far they have been able to identify the specific learners at specific schools. So it's a limited leak. It doesn't affect the whole exam. And what's interesting about this year's breach is that, to my knowledge, this is the first time that what we've seen in terms of, let's say, cheating, is that it was the actual answers to the questions, what we call in education the memorandum, marking memoranda, that were given to learners. We don't know at this stage whether it was for financial benefit, but we know that some learners repeated word for word what was in the marking memo. So it's limited. The second thing that's important is that the department identified this very quickly, and that's because that's the way the system works. So the markers were able to identify, wait a minute, there's some fishy stuff here, and they will be able to immediately identify it and took quick action. So the police are already involved, the task teams are already involved, and what we also need to take comfort in is that we have a quality assurance system. Umalusi is the body that is going to look at the outcome of the investigation, look at the final results, and make sure that these are credible.
In terms of these young people now who have literally compromised themselves, and the individuals who these answers were gotten from, or however it was that these young people managed to get their hands on these answers of these question papers. If I'm not mistaken, English is one of them, and physical science. What is going to happen now? The case has been opened at the police station, but what generally happens, and what is the future? What does the future hold for these young people?
So there's 2 very important questions in what you're asking. In terms of the police, this is going to have consequences for the persons within the DBE who took this marking memorandum and took it to particular individuals, whether or not for financial gain. That is a criminal offense. It's adults breaching their moral obligations for either personal or financial benefit. The police must deal with them firmly. For the young people, I believe that the approach is correct. There are serious consequences. They will not be allowed to write the National Senior Certificate again for a period of at least 2 years. That's a big setback for a young person, but it's appropriate that they understand the consequences of such dishonesty. In some exam jurisdictions, learners are not allowed to write again ever. But I think my approach is correct. It must be very tempting when someone offers you the exam to have the moral strength to say, no, I won't take these answers. They were, can I use the word seduced by the availability of this material? They shouldn't be punished forever, but it's a serious consequence for them. It's 2 years that they now cannot proceed with a qualification that takes them into future opportunities. That it's appropriate.
Now, how will Umalusi, the quality assurance body, and the National Investigative Task Team ensure that there is fairness during the marking and just the standardization process for the affected subjects?
Very good. So the marking, it's to the credit of the markers that they identified this problem, and it means that the markers are all going to be very vigilant for any indication in the scripts that learners have completed where they have lifted complete paragraphs, sentences, and in some cases the whole of the marking memorandum. So the markers will already be vigilant. They've already been able to identify the particular learners of the particular schools. That will be the subject of the investigation that will be finished before the end of December, given to the Minister. There's a range of organizations that are involved in that task team, and they will be working with an independent forensic investigator closely with the police. Then, in terms of the overall standardization, based on the outcome of that investigation, if it is indeed limited to the 7 schools and particular learners, Umalusi will then make a consideration if there are any implications for standardization. That is their primary task. I think the public needs to know that any time Umalusi issues a statement of the results of any examining body, they have to provide the public with the assurance that quality is assured, that the qualification has not been compromised by any of this misconduct, and they do that job very well.
Well, Professor Metcalf, it's always a pleasure chatting to you. Thank you so much for joining us on Africa Update. As Professor Mary Metcalf, Professor of Practice at the University of Johannesburg, joining us on the line. Our news headlines up next.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Lulu. Bananese government officials are demanding the immediate extradition of the alleged leader of the failed coup who sought refuge in neighboring Togo. The United States has threatened to reduce its foreign assistance to South Sudan unless Juba lifts what it said were illicit fees on humanitarian shipments. And Venezuelan opposition leader Maria Corina Machado, who has been in hiding for months, says she knows exactly the risk she is taking by traveling to Norway to collect her Nobel Peace Prize. The 58-year-old made the covert journey despite a travel ban. Channel Africa News, I'm Onele Nsinsi.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective. Sports. On Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
We kick off with football news. Mali will face a major blow ahead of the Africa Cup of Nations with no proper preparations planned before the tournament. Reports say the squad will only hold training sessions with no friendly matches or pre-camp program scheduled. Most players are based overseas and will only assemble on the 13th of December. Coach Tom Saintfiet is due to announce his squad on Thursday morning after returning from Belgium. In the meantime, Tanzania coach Miguel Gamondi has named a 28-man squad for the Africa Cup of Nations. The squad blends overseas stars with local talent led by Captain Mbwana Samata. from League One, and Simon Mzuva, who plays in Iraq. Domestic selections include Faisal Salum, Pascal Masindo, Mohamed Hussein, and Yakub Suleiman from the Tanzanian Premier League. The Taifa Stars will be aiming to make history by reaching the knockout stages of the Africa Cup of Nations for the first time. South Africa Stars of Africa Academy prospect Khomotso Madiba will finally jet off to Brazil just a day after celebrating his 18th birthday, joining Fluminense in what he hopes will be the first step towards a future move to Europe. The highly regarded teenager has signed a 3-year deal with the South American Giants after catching their eye during an assessment several months ago. The junior international said he's thrilled and ready for the life-changing opportunity ahead.
I'm very excited and I'm very grateful for the opportunity I'm going to get in Brazil and like the opportunity I've gotten in Brazil, and I just can't wait to get in the field and do what I love the most.
Madiba will encounter a different culture but says he's prepared to make sacrifices.
In Brazil, they appreciate skillful players. You see, in Brazil, and they're very good in technique and food also. You see, like it's different from South Africa. But as a player, we need to adjust. We all know, like we played in the fields where like it was bouncy field, but you can't just say, today we're not playing because it's bouncy fields. You see, so we need to adjust. As a player, you need to adjust because if you want to be the best, you need to adjust.
On to cricket news. The South African Proteas captain Laura Volvaert and a team concluded their 3-match T20 series against Ireland on Wednesday after third encounter at the Wilmore Park Stadium in Benoni, east of Johannesburg, got abandoned due to rain. The Proteas walk away with a 2-0 series win after registering one-sided victories in each of the first 2 matches. In the first T20 International, the skipper herself stood up from the front and smashed only her second century in the format with a quick-fire 115 off just 56 runs in Cape Town. 9 Russian and Belarusian athletes have been granted permission to compete in the qualifying events for next year's Winter Olympics as neutral athletes. The International Ski and Snowboard Federation, FIS, had initially banned them from taking part, but the ban was overturned by a sports court last week. The select athletes have now received individual neutral athletes AIN status after meeting the International Olympic Committee ICC eligibility criteria, but will not be able to compete under the flag of their country. In October, the FIS Council had voted against Russians and Belarusians competing in its qualification events for the Games in Milan and Cortina, which starts on the 6th of February 2026. The Russian Ski Association, the Belarusian Ski Union, and 17 athletes from the countries made appeals against the decision to the Court of Arbitration for Sport, which partially upheld them, clearing the way for previously banned athletes to take part in the Games. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. This is Channel Africa Sport with me, Figile Lungwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective. Channel Africa is evolving, and so are you. Stay connected wherever you are with our brand new website and mobile app. Stream your favorite shows, catch up on African news, culture, and conversations, all at your fingertips.
Africa is just a tap away.
Your world, your stories, now on the go.
Stay connected wherever you are.
Visit channelafrica.co.za or download the Channel Africa app today. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Business news on Channel Africa, the African perspective.
Good afternoon. Time for our first look at the business news this afternoon. And our top story, Botswana has reinstated its ban on importing certain vegetables, including tomatoes and potatoes, from South Africa. Authorities say the move is meant to encourage citizens to buy locally produced food, but the decision has raised questions, especially since both countries are members of the Southern African Customs Union, a bloc created to promote free trade. Economist Wandile Sihlobo says the union may now need a serious review.
The two countries that have continued with this practice is Botswana and Namibia. The key argument that all of these countries put on the table is that they want to increase their own domestic production, which is a fair thing, and we want countries to do that. But I do think that there is an appropriate way of doing that without completely shutting off trade and disrupting the value chains in this region. Disadvantages the consumers in these countries, the retailers.
The South African rand has declined to 16 rand 97 against the US dollar, down 0.4%. This as traders evaluated the US Federal Reserve's 25 basis point rate cut and awaited key local data releases. The Fed's decision, made amidst a divided vote, indicated that borrowing costs may remain steady until clearer economic indicators emerge. Upcoming statistics from Statistics South Africa, including mining output and formal sector employment data, are expected to provide insight into the country's economic health. The Trump administration is considering a one-year extension of the Africa Growth and Opportunity Act, AGOA, viewing South Africa as a unique case. U.S. Trade Representative Jameson Greer addressed this during a Senate Appropriations Subcommittee meeting, responding to Senator John Kennedy's inquiry about South Africa's status in AGOA. Kennedy has proposed legislation to extend AGOA, focusing on strengthening bilateral trade with at least 5 beneficiary countries, while reviewing the U.S.-South Africa relationship due to concerns over Pretoria's foreign policy impacting U.S. interests.
We've had some conversations with the South Africans when it comes to trade. And again, there are a lot of kind of foreign policy issues that I don't get into with South Africa. But when it comes to trade, they have a lot of barriers, not just tariff, but non-tariff barriers, et cetera. We've made clear to the South Africans that if they ever want to have a better tariff situation with us, they need to take care of these tariffs and non-tariff barriers. They're a real economy. They're a big economy, right? They have an industrial base. They have an agricultural base. They should be buying things from the United States.
The Global Development Finance Conference Momentum 2025 has kicked off in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. The 3-day conference, organized by the National Development Fund, will focus on driving the next phase of global development financing. The UN Office for South-South Cooperation says Momentum 2025 reflects the global shift from aid to sustainable finance at a time of shrinking budgets and rising climate debt and demographic pressures, and sets the agenda for how development finance must evolve to build resilience and growth. Director of the UN Office for South-South Cooperation, Dima Al-Khatib.
There was fantastic examples of engagement with multilateral development banks, with also different private sector entities, but also a showcase on how Saudi Arabia is pursuing its own Vision 2030 with, a very efficient engagement and inclusion of the private sector in advancing so many sectors, from energy to addressing climate issues to urbanization and so on and so forth.
Asian equities experienced their largest monthly foreign outflows in nearly 6 years in November, totaling $22.1 billion, as investors sold tech stocks amid valuation concerns. Taiwan faced $12.4 billion in net selling, while South Korea's outflow reached $9.75 billion, marking its largest since March 2020. HSBC's Harold van der Linde noted rising concerns about the sustainability of the AI-driven market rally, indicating that concentrated investments in AI trades could lead to significant fluctuations with slight changes in expectations. And now taking our first look at the indicators this afternoon. $1 in Nigeria is trading at 1,452 naira. In Botswana, it's 13 pula 19. Kenya, the dollar is trading at 128 shilling 51. And in Zambia, it's 23 kwacha 18. The BRICS countries, $1 in Brazil is trading at 5 rial 45. Russia, 77 rubles 66. In India, it's 89 rupees 88. China 7 yuan and 6. And South Africa, $1 is trading at 16 rand 99 cents at this hour. $1 is trading at 75 pence to the British pound and 85 to the euro. Looking at commodities, gold is trading at $4,222 per ounce. Platinum at $1,680 per ounce, while Brent crude oil is at $61.27 a barrel. It's inched down a bit this afternoon. And that's the business news. I'll be back with another update in the next hour. In the meantime, if you have any business stories you'd like to share with us, please do send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or give us a call on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business, I am Buntle Hetbush.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective. Channel Africa is evolving, and so are you. Stay connected wherever you are with our brand new website and mobile app. Stream your favorite shows, catch up on African news, culture, and conversations, all at your fingertips.
Africa is just a tap away.
Your world, your stories, now on the go.
Stay connected wherever you are.
Visit channelafrica.co.za or download the Channel Africa app today. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Africa Update on Channel Africa.
It is 12:46 Central African time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. South Africa has reaffirmed its stance amid a diplomatic rift over its exclusion from upcoming G20 engagements. This follows the announcement by the current G20 chair, the United States, that Poland will occupy South Africa's seat at next week's ministerial Sherpa meeting in Miami. Briefing the media in Pretoria on Wednesday on the outcomes of the cabinet meeting held last Friday, Minister in the Presidency Khumbudzo Chabeni emphasized that South Africa remains available to participate and called on G20 members to uphold the integrity of the forum's founding principles. Channel Africa's reporter Michael Mbewe has more.
The diplomatic tensions between South Africa and the United States have continued to intensify, reshaping the contours of relationship long regarded as strategically significant. At the center of the latest dispute is Washington's decision to bar South Africa from participating in the upcoming G20 summit in Miami, a move that has drawn sharp attention both within the continent and across the global diplomatic community. South Africa has responded by firmly reiterating its position, underscoring that its participation in the G20 is not only a matter of national interest, but also a representation of Africa's voice in one of the world's most influential economic forums. Here is South Africa's Minister in the Presidency, Khumbudzo Chabeni.
With the G20, the Sherpa meeting has not taken place yet. It's going to start on the 15th and 16th of December. We have indicated our availability to participate, and we leave it to other members of the G20 to take it up and show a confidence in the G20 system that members cannot be excluded unnecessarily. So that is our position. You'll recall that there was a last Sherpa meeting which countries has indicated that they will not allow the desegregation of the G20 system because all members must participate as required as founding participants. So that is our position.
Chaveni maintained that yielding to pressure from the United States is not an option. However, she noted that the trade discussions remain active, with South Africa continuing to regard the US as a key strategic partner.
Why should we plead with the US? We are not in the business of pleading with the USA. We are a sovereign state. They are a sovereign state. They can take their decisions. We'll take the decisions that are in the interest of South African. And we acknowledge that the US is a very strategic trading partner. That's why we continue to engage with them on the trade-related matters of South Africa and matters of mutual interest. The G20 fiasco does not indicate our relations and our ability to engage with the US. When they engage with us, we'll respond to them and we engage in the matter and form which they choose to engage. But as a trading partner, we value the US and will continue to pursue mechanism to remain a strategic trading partner for the US. And we hope they also know that South Africa remains strategic in their own national interest.
Nchaveni says ongoing misinformation campaign driven by actors in the US and local groups like Solidarity and AfriForum is straining relations between Pretoria and Washington. She adds that actions by the Abatembo King fall under the EFF's political domain, and it is for the party to clarify whether it supports the narratives he is advancing.
You indicate that the misinformation is not getting away. The misinformation is only driven from the United States and people here in South Africa who have Solidarity and AfriForum in the main. We see now the king of Abatembo has joined, but it's for the EFF, who the king is their member, to articulate their position as a party, whether they agree with the notion, the misinformation that is perpetuated by their king.
Nchaveni has also defended the withdrawal of a visa on arrival entry for Palestinian nationals, saying the system was being abused following unexplained flights from Israel. She says South Africa will not be used to depopulate Gaza and reaffirmed the country's support for a two-state solution grounded in UN solutions.
And that report by Michael Mbewe. It is 12:50 Central African time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. And we say a very good afternoon to Tebogo Kuleni of The Upside. Hello, how are you today?
Hello, Lulu. I'm fantastic. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. What's coming up today?
Here's what's coming up on The Upside this afternoon. The Imbewu Arts Festival is marking a significant milestone this year. They are turning 10 years, a full decade of nurturing young talent and strengthening community arts. We'll be getting into conversations about not just the work that they've been doing over the years, but the next 10 years. What does that look like for them? And then we profile an entrepreneur, a South African entrepreneur by the name of Nhlanhla Mthethwa, who created his very own sneaker brand. It's called Indwangu Originals. And we're going to be unpacking, because it's such a competitive market, the sneaker space in Africa, in South Africa. What makes his so special? What makes his so different? Is grounded in his roots, grounded in being African, proud to be African, and he wanted to display that in the footwear that he designed. So we'll be getting into conversation with him, and that's all coming up. And Matseko Musito is back today, so we are back as the complete team.
All right, and there you have it. Matseko Musito and Tebogo Kuleni of The Upside taking over from the top of the hour. We continue on Africa Update. It is 12:52 Central African time.
Africa. It's time to plug into the heartbeat of the continent. Tune in to Channel Africa, your go-to radio station that broadcasts in 5 different languages.
L'Afrique du Sud célèbre la journée nationale du
Kabla hujaitwa kwa jina la Double K
or more of our forests have been destroyed.
Partido Africano da Independência da Guiné.
See, Channel Africa represents every corner of this amazing land. From Lagos to Cape Town, Nairobi to Dakar, we've got you covered with the freshest news, music, and cultures. So, turn up the volume, feel the rhythm. Enjoy the conversation. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo, 12 to 1 p.m. Central African Time.
Australia has become the first country in the world to ban social media for children under the age of 16. The ban prohibits them from accessing multiple platforms such as TikTok, YouTube, as well as Meta's Instagram and Facebook. While Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has praised the move, some teenagers are doubtful about its impact. Bonolo Maribe has more.
10 of the biggest platforms were ordered to block children from midnight local time on Wednesday, or face fines up to 49.5 million Australian dollars under the new law. Several companies, including Meta and TikTok, have already started shutting down or disabling accounts for users under 16 to comply with the legislation. Despite drawing criticism from major technology companies and free speech advocates, it was welcomed by many parents and child advocates and lauded by Australia's Prime Minister Anthony Albanese.
Make no mistake, this reform will change lives for Australian kids and allowing them to just have their childhood, for Australian parents enabling them to have greater peace of mind, but also for the global community who are looking at Australia and saying, well, if Australia can do it, why can't we?
While eSafety Commissioner Julie Inman Grant elaborated on the country's decision.
Well, this is Australia calling time on social media and the deceptive and harmful design features tethering our children to their platforms, gamifying it through endless scroll and snap streaks and autoplay, sending them down dangerous rabbit holes. You know, it's built into the system to keep stickiness through outragement.
However, some teenagers are not so receptive.
I just feel like there's a lack of trust. Like, I mostly think that the social media should be up to the parents to decide whether their children should be allowed it or not. I don't think it should be a government thing.
I kind of see where they're coming from, but also I think if you can get a job at 14, if you can take care of someone's kid, like do babysitting and stuff, I think you should be able to have social media and have the government trust you on it.
It's just kind of pointless. It's just we're just gonna create new ways to get on these platforms. So what's the point, you know?
Meanwhile, countries like Denmark and New Zealand have indicated they might emulate Australia's model, positioning Australia as a key case study in how far governments can restrict social media without undermining children's freedom of expression. Bonolo Maribe, SABC News.
It is 12:56 Central African time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. Today on Hashtag Africa Update Ask, South Africa has reaffirmed its stance amid a diplomatic rift over its exclusion from upcoming G20 engagements. Poland will occupy South Africa's seat at next week's ministerial Sherpa meeting in Miami. Now, our question to you is, what do you make of this decision by the US? Share your thoughts and your views on all our social media platforms. That's on X, Instagram at Channel Africa 1, on Facebook at Channel Africa. You can also send us your comments and voice notes to +2763 at 406-9126. Hashtag Africa Update Us.
Your window to the continent and beyond. Africa Update. Only on Channel Africa. Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Join us in conversation on our social media platforms. That's on X, Instagram at Channel Africa 1, on Facebook at Channel Africa. You can also send us your comments and voice notes to +2763 at 406-9126. Hashtag Africa Updates, and let us know which country you're in. And if you have any stories that you'd like us to highlight or to focus on, send us an email. It is newsroom@channelafrica.co.za, or give us a call on +2711-714-4459.
Africa Update, your daily dose of African insights with Lulu Gaboo on Channel Africa.
South Africa has once again turned its focus to the foundations of its democracy as government and human rights organizations gathered at Constitution Hill in Johannesburg to mark International Human Rights Day, a day that also commemorates the signing of the country's constitution into law. The annual observance on the 10th of December serves as a reminder of the rights promised to all who live in South Africa and of the work still required to uphold them. Our reporter Lebogang Mabange has more.
The 10th of December remains a symbolic date for South Africa, a reminder of both its painful past and its continued pursuit of justice, equality, and human dignity. Gathered under the theme Human Rights, Our Everyday Essentials, Partners including the Department of Justice, the UN Human Rights Office, Constitution Hill, and the South African Human Rights Commission reflected on the state of rights in the country. Speaking at the commemoration, the UN Resident Coordinator in South Africa, Nelson Mafa, said everyday actions must reinforce the democratic values set out in the Constitution.
Everyday actions keep rights alive, including defending a journalist's right to report, ensuring a child learns in safety, making services work for all, combating criminality and certainly GBV, challenging impunity and promoting integrity, standing with those on the margins and protecting the defenders who protect us.
And that report by Lebogang Mabange. And that's a wrap of Africa Update today. Continue with us on all our social media platforms, and let's do this again tomorrow. Bye-bye.
We are on Open Views Audio Bouquet. Channels